다른데个有个决定你是呗다对咁的了베베 겹지 민규로 지셔고 위배 러드 넘버다 캠버게 신이 넘버다 나는 신기 아주 시라하기 롬니로와 넘버다 근데 손주 돌아야 좀배 세게 니마 뱅겔이야 정말 참지这是 需要
Today, on the occasion of the 20th Kaju Gunche, I would like to welcome everyone, primarily Kyabche Mingyo Rinpoche, all the lamas, all the tulkus, all of the students, all of the kempos and spiritual masters, all of the students from the various kshetras, as well as all of the lay people who have gathered here today. I would like to offer you my welcome and tashi dilek.
다들이데 오늘 세비는 송수에디 가산에 고주야 여러분들이 다이네 가산 쇼베 다 떨롱 그유기 안주 다 우치 우다 디상 우치라고 봐. 다 떨롱 그유기 간다 덴베 다부체 떨롱 싶죠. 그러지데 아주 구절이야 덴지 휴제 덴지 제림지 사르도 네바 인자 디균zel 데네 에는 가장 고주 못도 그래.
Now, actually, our teachings were supposed to begin yesterday. However, yesterday morning, we invited the head of the Taklong Kaju lineage, Taklong Shabdo Rinpoche. We had a program to welcome him here. And because of that program, we did not start the teachings yesterday.
다들이 군시 디토리아 세세의 최디 아주 gyāwān gyāba mīgyū dōjī dzēbē dā chīdōng gyāsama shūgō rē dā tī nāni jī chī tōng tōng tsāmbā tsāmbā māngbō yā rē tī nāni pāpa tūjī shimbī gī mōtī chūjī tsimbū bē lō gī pāpa tūjī shimbī mōtī dā dē shīndō nīmbū tōng sōng gī chī dē shūyā yīng.
Now, the Dharma that I will be teaching during these teachings is from the 100 Short Instructions of the 8th Gyalwang Karmapa Mikyo Dorje. So this is a collection of many different short instruction manuals that are gathered together. And among them, I will be teaching on the direct instructions of Avalokiteshvara from the tradition of Tsembupa, as well as the teachings on the 3 essential points.
다들이야 다 딘데 슈주데 당부들이야 투시심벽이 멋지디 쉬야데 다들이 슈어 챵을 양엘이야 네 투시심 멋지 쉬야 인두산에 델레야 통마르지
So the first one I will begin teaching from today are the direct instructions on the Great Compassionate One.
다들이야 파부두지 신비역이 다 참에 견케버시 대시 상계 탐지기 다지 투지의 실업 직도 뒤에 등이 안 바보 투지 시험부터 암다 바보 제네시 라스오베 딱하나 생긴 남자 먹고 줘야 되고 임bre 다든 대기 주탑당 당화 다 망부지 유에 임bre 다 별 간증이 좋나 유용수 차배 에다 니유기 담배 쇠 ngayon.
Now, the great compassionate one, Avalokiteshvara, as you all know, is the embodiment of all of the compassion and all of the blessings of all Buddhas gathered into one being. And so he's known by Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig, by many different names. Now, there are many different sadhanas and many different instructions to practice him. But there are primarily 5 oral lineages that are well known in Tibet.
다 당부디 조제 러지 디범가라네 마 게세 라소르니 규네 데네 원드 나 데나마 규네 원드 께강바스 다디 원드 께강바 슈아디 가담베 라마심브레 다디 투지심비기 주베인스 제제 근데 송요하래 제가 디네마 규베기 안 투지심비 당화기 가수지에 비메레 디찬레야 께강로스 주고래.
Now, the first tradition is the tradition that originated with the Lord Atisha, the Atisha Dimamkara. He taught this to Geshe Laksorwa, and then gradually it was passed down until it came to the master named Wuntun Kyenkamba. Wuntun Kyenkamba was one of the Kadampa masters, and he was said to have been an emanation of the Great Compassionate One. So this is one tradition of these instructions, and it is known as the Gyalkampa lineage.
다들이 니버디 다 참에 바지 킹그레 게노마 palmonema 규베 palmulu 체제 다는 뉴네 차망부지 다 palmulu기 차가 티톤 단대지 도차리게 윈두산 참에 킹그레 삼정도.
Now, the second one is a tradition that I think you probably all know. This is the tradition of the Bhikkhuni Palmo. The Bhikkhuni Palmo, when we do the Nyungne practice, we follow the ritual that comes from her tradition. So this is the second tradition that I think you all know.
다들 숨바디 양적 투시부 제네스기 주바 전주스만 나와겠지 쉬어지다 드네지 주도지 답변이야 드네 주도 충분해 다 디기 파버 제네스기 빌레 파버 제네스를 배 무슨 세네 지 타난기 답변 나와래야 파버 제네스 다 셰스이네 디기 파버 제네스 군주는 무슨 세네 르베 규대바 르기 규대바 다 드네 로치 충분해 다 디밀이야 다 예로스 쉬어래.
Now, the third tradition is one that comes from the Tibetan master named Dao Gyatsen. He was a great practitioner, a siddha, who appeared in Tibet. And through his practice, he was able to see Avalokiteshvara face by face. He had like a vision, a pure vision, and saw Avalokiteshvara, and actually received these instructions, which then were passed down from master to disciple. And so this tradition is called the Dagyal tradition.
다드네 시버디 주진 미전族이네 주진 미전族이네 안 추불러서 추그 유기 추불러서 전부 라소바는 마 유베게 다 룩지게 바래 디 룩딜이야 안 미저 룩시 쇼요래.
The fourth tradition is of Mitra Yogi. Mitra Yogi gave it to Tropo. He was a great translator and of the Tropo Kagyu lineage. And so there's this tradition, and it is known as the Mitra tradition.
다들 ngabadi 다 주진 츠부바 주진 츠부밤 야나 nye 츠부바스 주가래 츠부바사데 다 이제 용자 챈듯이 되는 챈을이야 담마요 수유스래 공기 도진 내주마래 무슨 셈베기 당마 다들이야 츤불루시 수유임래.
The fifth is the tradition of the great Mahasiddha Tsembupa, or who's also known as the Nyen Sambupa. Tsembupa is he's the name he's most well known by, but his actual name is Chandrawe.
No, Dharmawe.
Dharmawe. And through his practice, he was able to actually see Vajrayogini and receive the pith instructions from her. And so these are the instructions in the tradition of Tsembupa.
Actually, he received this instruction from the Vajrayogini. 다 든제기 투지신벽이 다 닝규기 가수스란 장도 닝규기 당화기 룩 첨봉아 예배 나네 딱금들이야 에네 타마 당기 고르슈야 타마 심부빌로 차대요래 다 심부빌 룩디 아주 라메기 규디 냠낸다 튠데버지 라메기 규디당 잡아야 되지. 안 다는 신기 종의 제송기에 냠내 차상 해야 되지. 때네 지금 아주 지다 남규 냠내 체배가 라렌 따르거든요. 지 라돌렌 되어야 돼 봐. 라돌렌 되어야냐 다도 명안에 사부시다 해야 되지. 진짜 인베 인주산에 lama khoma namgi di pe karshure sangwe menga ro chinaji sangwe menga ro che shindu pe zashim shi zinang ge ares adrin ju san di gyun zan de ne ta korang ki da ji kyeje de bisanan randu da na shingi da penyen ru de jure.
So of these 5 oral transmissions, or you could say whispered or oral lineages of the instructions on the Great Compassionate One, here we'll be discussing the last of these, which is the tradition of Tsembupa. And so this is a tradition that is actually very closely related and very closely tied to the unexcelled yoga tradition of the secret mantra. It also has a complete practice that has the preliminaries, the actual practice, and the concluding phases. Not only that, it is an extremely simple, very easy practice for us to do. Yet at the same time as it is simple and easy, the instructions, the pith instructions, are very profound. Because it is so profound, many of the great masters of the past have treated it as a secret pith instruction. So it is, they considered it extremely important. So we can look at this as being like the features or the benefits of this practice.
다디 로규 다 라만년 츠부바사디 로규 노듀르 쉐위미나 로직 세버지 슈아케멘도 로직 거듀충 거듀데사지 로직 세버 슈아멘도 다 이나야 간다랴 라마 nye tsimbupa shuadi nye saadi korang rüming dungyu mingi bare nye saadi chungsa di shabgu saadi shabgu chos chung saadi shabgu saadi ni lumba jeb ja dadi kawaye dadi yabuchi gochoya ma song kanda shabgu cho sama da shabgu ki sa cho lungpa jingmi le shabu sa jebji di chole ya chungji nisre.
Now to speak a little bit about the story of the great practitioner Tsembupa. His dates are not at all clear. It's not clear when he was born, when he died, and so forth. But in any case, there was this great master called Nyen Tsembupa. The word Nyen is his family name. We don't know, as far as his birthplace, it is said that he was born in the area of Shakpo. So Shakpo is probably some sort of region or place or valley. I don't know exactly where it is. In any case, it is said that he was born in the region of Shakpo.
건 침부바 슈가 균선 가라서 공기 납살이야 침부만 못 geb쇼스. 바지 렘바만 못 geb쇼스래. 렘바만 못 여자다 침부만 못 야오로 봐. 제자 이 침부만 못 geb쇼 인자 아니다 지 미수역이다. 지 침부바사 아버지 되지 봐. 민도로지. 닉네임도 이제 다면로 제자 침부바지 용다도 잘.
Now the reason why he is called Tsembupa is the word Tsembupa means the one in stitches or who's been sewn up. The reason for calling him this is because his clothes was made out of many patches that were, or many rags or patches that were sewn together and stitched together, so he was called. So when people saw him, they called him the stitched one or Tsembupa as like a nickname.
다고 지금 동안 이거를 캠바게 되어서 말이야. 다가는 지금 동안 이거래야 지 장시 주바. 나들이 개버지면 안 다른 신기 지 주 웬변내들이야. 다 주반냠네 주제네. 진짜랑이 그래.
Now he had a great knowledge of both the sutras and the tantras. He had mastered both of these. And he's primarily spent his time meditating and practicing in isolated places.
다들 주변 근데 나주산 니마치래야 다 도진nen저메 셰시 다 셰스 주산에 들려야지 소왔답 윤주산에 소왔답을 담네 에디 도지신벽에 명한디 다 도진nen저메 마지 가르에 마 때마 들이종이 그래서 마 셰네 송 다들 치수 추균기 nen저 축사지 나머지 원의 연구하래 추균기 nen저 축이 돌이야 축이 꼴이야 세가시라 매대지 카스시라 매빈자 양결 안 도지 nen저 말이야 소았다 양양결 셰시네 에너지 가서 양결 담아나 들리나 딱한다 셰 도지 nen저 메셰 레니 시네 다들 이제 토안에 안 딱한다 도시신벽이 명하대 차상하지 이제 도시는 점에 땅을 나와 드리지 있어요.
Now, as he spent his time practicing meditation in these isolated places, one day he actually saw Vajrayogini in person. He saw her in person and he supplicated her, and she taught him these instructions, these pith instructions on the great compassionate ones. And then later he taught these to his 6 main disciples, who are called the 6 yogis in the flow of the river.
No. It's you have unclear in the instruction, 6 instruction, not 6 student.
Oh, excuse me. So there are 6 instructions in the flow of the river. Excuse me. So there are 6 instructions, and when he taught them, they seemed not to be so clear. So once again he went to practice, and again he saw Vajrayogini.
No, actually he's not clear about these 6 instructions. Mm-hmm. That's why he again asked. He didn't teach them.
Okay, so the 6 instructions were not clear, and so he then practiced, saw Vajrayogini, and again received the instructions from her. So he saw Vajrayogini in person twice, and this is how he received the complete instructions on the Great Compassionate One from her.
다 도진 nen저메 배 생을 수시네. 다 된데 돈에 가져야지. 당화 차상와지 나 왜 제래야 아니다 진짜야 지기 데즈 콘리아 미지 진짜게 미진짜게야 콘리지 고마든지 피유스래 고마든지 피유스래 이내양 고마든지 마셔비치지 간다를 변변내려야 나당기 도진내주면 낭샤비 당화되게 찌지도 곰네 냠술렘 데르나요 주사 엔지 세질로 주변이야 봐 나들이 총이 말해서 주송하래
And so, having seen Vajrayogini's face to face twice, she gave him the complete instructions on this practice, and he explained his realization to people, but he did not actually teach it. And he spent his time in isolated practice, in isolated places, practicing this pointedly, and through this was able to achieve siddha, or accomplishment in this life.
다 공리아 디 로마 당화 진백 로마 당화 진백에 다 간다 로마 전부 주 든지 중에 말에 다 디는 조디 그래 줄해봐 말에 줄해봐디 줄해봐 원주차 줄해봐 원주차디 그 공기 그래 중부 이 뭐들이 송도 공기 중부에서 빈자 총디 빈자 총에서 들이 송도도 다조 조레바 원주 차사데 조레바 원주 차사데 지당기 공기 너다 덴주 망부지 시네 다 망부지 시네 지도 제외 냠내로 지 가르쳐다 돼 내가 배지기 내가 상얘기 지 냠내로 돼 냠내 제 맛에 비지 다 하설래야 치네 조를 무지 군들이야 소환되가 쳔버스 대 준주산에 에는 버지 년침부보다 대 랑가라 버지 라슬이야 소환되가 준주산에 년침부보다는 제네 다대원의 주도 브랜드 공체 주도 임바 시 에는 소화다 드시주산에 에는 즉 년침부배 당화주낭 드리나요 미래스 제자다 줄해버사디다 공기 로메나 조지미래 대라서다 간다 당화지미에 로마 초기에 다들이 말 다들 메신이 귀대비스 드리시샤
Now he primarily had 6 disciples who upheld these who held or upheld these pith instructions. And the main one among these is Chuhlepa. So the Chuhlepa Munchukpal, it said he was his younger brother. And so he had read many different treatises, and he was looking for a practice that would contain all of the main points, all the essential points of the oral instructions. He decided to go to Lhasa to ask for such instructions from Lord Atisha. And as he was going along the way, he met...
No, not Atisha. Like he wanted to go to Lhasa. Yeah.
Excuse me, not Atisha. It's not... He wanted to pray to the Jo statue. And on the way, he met Nyen Sembupa. And he saw that he understood that he had become a great Mahasiddha and a great master. So he asked for instructions, and these are the pith instructions which Nyen Sembumpa gave him. So he was the primary disciple. In total, there were 6 students who held these instructions and then passed them down gradually.
아주 가담 선이 안다는 신기 그유 응시 섬으로 다저 아주 저 타고 그유를 소베 응시 체베 그유가 남나 안다는 지 반대 사게 발서 봐 디주처리야 다 간다 가수에 잡게 심부에 돼 봐. 다 드리지기 다 명아 자신 샤리 그래
Now, these instructions on the great compassionate one from Tsumbupa were passed down in the Kadampa tradition, both the old and the new Kadampa tradition. And they also were passed down in the Kagyu tradition, including the Tapo Kagyu tradition. They also spread into the Sakya, and so these instructions spread widely. Now to read the instructions, it starts, direct instructions on the great compassionate one, noble Avalokiteshvara. These instructions passed down from the Mahasiddha Tsumbupa on achieving the state of noble Avalokiteshvara have 3 sections, training and the preparation, actual practice, and conclusion. For the preparations, Now for the preparations, in general there are 2 different types. There are the ordinary preliminaries and there are the special preliminaries. Now for the ordinary preliminaries, these are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, the meditations on the precious human body, death and impermanence, karmic cause and effect, and the defects of samsara.
Lodo number shivudi and che be cheshindu draw lea, lodo number shivudi, that's in Yamne Jimena. That young I may be in Dusane, did you send then like the others catch him with Zije, Yamsland, what the catch of Starisha.
Now, these are not mentioned in the words, but if we are giving an experiential instruction, then we do need to meditate upon the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, as described in the teachings on the stages of the path, and the teachings on mind training, and so forth. We need to meditate on them. We need to practice the 4 thoughts that turn the mind until they move our beings, until they inspire our minds. And until we have such a feeling of that, we need to continue to train in these 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Now, at this point, we do not have the time to go through them, but in any case, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind are extremely important. In order for our Dharma practice to actually be the Dharma, if we do not have practice of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, then our practice will not work. And so for this reason, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind are considered extremely important.
Lodo number shivudi in Benata Dinan Bena Tangerine Chashavin. Tangerine Galabe Nyamyon Maki with his seed, but Tangerine Yamcha orders. Mado and Yan Chuamida, Tangerine Galea, Nyamyon Maki Honla, Chomjam, Chuamida, and Yam Chechomas. Says a town, the day in that music be Tangerine Yamne. Miziji Yamne Zane Kashuradaji Kashuradaji 투주르디 텐저니가 고야 지불 zon소나 가르쳐오레스 토바쿨론으로 체 토바 통지 체연도 어다디 안다 교요 말았어 네 첸들레베 텐저니가 지불 냠내 체네 아니 저럽 제말아야 아니 치워입니다 봐도 레주데도 아니 냠내 지 귤레 가르쳐 냠내 냠뇨 껴지 몰람 땀네 어다 드리체지 냠내 차고로 마도베 어다 ngamal라 냠뇨 마게 바르 치마치마 라요 말았어 딱 하나 더 담보르지 낸덴르디 낸덴 첨부지 제바 낸덴 첨부지 제베기 천체로 두스레로 와 nga마도 냠뇨 기기 간지 차고래서 데 마게 발레 초비야 야요 말았어 타나 수수 미지 시불래야베 로도는 시나가 벤 텐전이가 떠지 미지 시부데 될 땅고 주나 봐 땅제 아니 냠뇽 마게가 봐도 디체 땅제 자오레스 근데 순아 가담 개신인데 순거 알아 다디 가르친 거라서나 다 로도 넘버 10디 계속 10지 미지 총고로 봐
With the great spiritual masters of the Kadampa tradition, they considered the four thoughts that turn the mind, and the way they very important. The way they practice them is like if we take the precious human body as birth as an example. They would practice this until they achieved an experience of it within their beings. They wouldn't move on to the next instruction, the instruction on death and impermanence, until they had really developed a true experience of the precious human body within their own beings. And so even if it took a long time, they might spend their entire lives practicing doing the practice of contemplating the precious human body and not do anything else out, and not feel like they've got and spend their entire lives practicing this until actually they had spent their whole lives and not moved on to anything else. But their motivation was such that they did not consider this a problem. They spent their entire lives practicing the precious human body, and then they made the aspiration that in their future lives they would be able to continue with the contemplations of death and impermanence, karmic cause and effect, and so forth. In any case, they stressed the practice of not moving on to the later practices until they developed a true experience of the earlier ones. And so until they had that real experience of the early ones, they kept practicing it, and only when that arrived would they move on to the next. And so they would, even if they spent their entire life meditating on the four thoughts that turns the mind, they could spend the whole life on the precious human body until they have experience in it. And so this is the tradition during the Kadampa times, and what this shows us is how extremely important they considered these practices.
There Mikyo Dorje da kada midri sungyewe der Mikyo Dorje da gomba de stage to shi da de ji de nyamle zedan de ji ka jure karas la da de nyamle zedan de ji busu to cha se ne da de to tam cha ba de 되지 맨로스 가르에서나 카셰 미카셰 텐전 얘기 냠내래야 좋아 지까지 텐전 얘기 냠내래야 영화 마기비네야 치와 미다베 냠내는 영화 깨라 이제 용어래 양 카셰 치와 미다베 냠내는 영화 마기비네 레 윤제 쳐리야 다시 레 윤제 걸이야 아니 영화 깨라 용어래 제사 베디 텐전이가 냠내 마게는 다 마게베 당 샤지베 다가랑 샤샤나 엔디디스 가르쳐 탑을 마게 버지 맨로스 제사 간다르 다 텐전 얘기기 냠내 줄게 라완도나 대냠내 체 치와미다베 냠내 줄게 라완도나 당봉에는 치와미다베 냠내 체 치와미다베 냠내 냠수뇨 줄게 디 슈기 안 텐전 얘기 냠내대야 용화게 레라요 저 레라지 레라보요 하르 디지스레 다 딘데 체제 간다르 베 가르초에 다 로도는 시티나네 수수규래야 냠뇽 한 깨라와 유빈네 다데 고 쳐다를 치지. 봐. 다 간다르지 배 탑시 유구 쯔중으로 치지. 근데가 토네. 아니 탑 나서 거네. 제고르마도 다 교랑 텐준이가 깨네 깨래 대마깨네 다 양조 처음 말했어야지. 모두 냠내 처음 말했어야지. 들리지 제샤나 디지털로 막아보면 로스. 근데 순간 딱 간다르 니가 찍버려도 와. 찍디 가르친 거 알았잖아. ngamangamal라 냠수뇽아 마제버 치마치마 좀자겸 주규어 말았어. 되게 좀 지르시. 찍디 가르랬잖아. 양 찍을 냠수뇽아 마제나 다 냠수뇽아 깨마소 냠네 바 가지고 레사로 채셔 뭐인가. 양 신다지를 배 탑시 신다지 당지. 지금 로도는 신당 최신실이야. 냠수래. 야대 냠유기도 동도 다시. 가다 찍디기 탑시 유구自助체 这个呢特别有个自助체冲突啊这印度上但你讲了团那多了团让搞完民族真的是这样
Now, according to the 8th Karmapa Mikyo Dorje, he said that this way of practicing was maybe a little bit too narrow or a little bit too tight. And the reason he said that is that there are some people when they do the contemplation of the precious human body, then they have difficulty. They're not able to develop experience of it. But it might be easier for them to develop the experience of death and impermanence. Or some people may not be able to develop the experience of death and impermanence, but it's easy for them to develop the experience of karmic cause and effect. And so if there is someone like this, then to tell them that they have to keep practicing the precious human body until they develop an experience of that, it may not be so skillful for that student. And instead, maybe if it's easy for them to practice the precious human body, then they should practice that. But if it's easier for them to first practice on death and impermanence, then they practice death and impermanence. And because of that practice, then it will be easier for them to develop an experience of the precious human body. In any case, you have to practice these 4 thoughts that turn the mind until you develop an experience of them within your being. And so you first have to test them out and see which one of them it's easiest for you to develop the experience. And then you can use different methods. And so this is what can be called the way of using a variety of different methods to develop the experience. This is because sometimes you have to, if you say that if you don't gain the experience of the precious human body, you can't progress, then this is maybe not so skillful in all instances. But in any case, these two are really the same. The first is a tradition that says until you develop the experience of one, you can't really develop the experience of the others. The other says that if you have to, tradition says that if you have to start with one and you aren't able to develop an experience of it, then you might get discouraged, thinking I'm not able to develop an experience of that. And so in order to avoid that, it uses various different methods. In any case, both of these traditions of meditating on the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, one follows a single progression and the other uses many different methods, but they are not contradictory.
다 되게 튜모가 건로 체. 다 튜모 뭐이 배건로 telea. 다 균유론도 체바 잠도 심기. 되네 초소바 맨데. 디립종 도지 셈바. 지름 주고 라멘네 주시지. 다 간다 주 튜모 뭐이 배건로 시리. 냠슬라인 버레.
Then following that, there are so that is the common preliminaries. Then following that, there are the special preliminaries. The special preliminaries include the practice of refuge and bodhicitta in order to make our beings a proper vessel for the Dharma. Second is the practice of the mandala in order to gather the accumulations. Third is the practice of vajrasattva to purify the obscurations. And the fourth is the practice of Guru Yoga in order to receive the blessings.
이제 튜모 뭐이 뭔가 시부대야 양지 가주에 오늘 전에 딱 가주에 지 귤라 냠냠 깽에 바로 진짜가 코안에 간다라 지 가주에 냠내 책과디 계십십 샤디아래 다는 신기 가시지 원조 무시 당스부터 이제 용디아래 양 가시 원조 무시 마당이미나 기시디 투시션부디기 주덤디 냠내 책과비미나 양지 녀려야 저 초신 가져다 냠내 치디를 체체 안다지 초신 젠데체 딘주들이야 안지 야라 듀기 거네 소소 드레체비미나 안 바지 대zam기 드버리 차대면서 삼도스탕도
And then with these four special preliminaries, it is the same, that it is important to keep practicing them until you have developed experience of them within your beings. Now, among everyone here, there are probably some of us who have finished the 400,000s of the preliminary practices, and there are probably some who haven't finished these 400,000 practices. Even if you haven't finished them, then I think that there would be nothing wrong with, if you still wish to do this sadhana, to imagine the field of refuge and to imagine that this is developing all the practices, or combining all the practices into one, and then make the 7 branches offerings to the field of refuge.
다 되게 다 뒤모만 임be 원도도 차르체 다 되네 무시 아주 다지 저 주진 심부벨 루기 안 토지신베 냠랜데 주덤디 냠서 램발라야 텔라야 아니 종의 제순 여비브레.
And so those are the common and the special preliminaries. And then after that, there are, again, for this practice of the Great Compassionate One in Tsumbupa's tradition, there are, again, the 3 different parts, the preparation, actual practice, and conclusion.
다 텔라야 지당기 기림의 주림기 여와체네 근데 시에는 저도 다 기림의 주림기 여와체베 원담이미나 담보다 기림기 텔라야 안에 담보 가르다 무신냠래 텔라 기림의 주림기 여와체샤나 저도 다가다 기림이 냠래 텔라야 도마다 원조 이바라 원조 저베 최텔라 다 담보 짬조 다들이 이제 맞추려니 당부 잠두니 랑이 지우 축한게 태도 빼만 가보 담아 시바다 다외 대 순지라 띵도 제레스 가르보 바로도 마르보 워도 원보 대순기 오메 토가는 룽기 긴거로 발메 토가는 매이 긴거로 띵메 토가는 추이 긴거로 대순기 띵도 예림네 군조 숨기 오요 틱리 까마랑 오스네 바로 무기기 동쇼 잡에 군조 숨기 툭도 진고 파바 제레스 원보를 껴수 치우 제제베 제레스 원베 토게 룽기 긴거 차도 예 군조 숨기 송도 진고 파바 제레스 마르볼을 껴수 치우 제제베 매이 긴거다 틱리 마르보 차도 마라 군조 숨기 꾸도 진고 파바 제레스 원주 까르볼을 껴수 치우 제제베 추이 긴거 틱리 까르보도 제바 차도 줍 틸리 까마랑 옷은 찍던 제네 제레스 원베 토거 가르링링 제발라 미그 째지도 되지 파버체에서 먼저 빨까마바 미규도절라 소환되서시 시바 게라 투기 발도 소왔답네 게라 투바나 틱르랑기 청부니 말 털중도 전부 삼바다 현지 적롱숭 틱리디 닝가르레바다 제네시 시지 차시부 찍도 wal기리 교벌 검신 지속이 제네스 숨부 뉴즈르슈네 청부네 마르파 투게 제네스기 셰도 쇠미 대신기 이시 뇽어 검시 소와 착답 차오 따디기 냠르데.
Now, another way we can look at this, or that we could explain this practice, is as having the 2 sections of the creation and the completion phases. And so if we have of it in this way, it's first the creation phase, and that begins with the preliminaries, and the preliminary begins with going for refuge. First is going for refuge. 1 cubit above your crown, on 3 seats of 4-petaled white lotuses and moons in a column, are a white Avalokiteshvara on top, a red one in the middle, and a blue one in the bottom. In the heart of the lowest of the 3, there is a mandala of wind. In the heart of the middle one, there is a mandala of fire. And in the heart of the upper one, there is a mandala of water. Above them, from the top down, are 3 white, red, and blue bindus, the essence of the 3 jewels. With a fervent longing of devotion, say, I go for refuge to the essence of the mind Vajra of the 3 jewels, blue Avalokita. This makes the wind mandala in the heart of the blue Avalokiteshvara blow hard. Say, I go for refuge to the essence of the 3 speech Vajra, the 3 jewels, red Avalokita. This makes the mandala of fire and the red bindu blade strongly. Say, I go for refuge to the essence of the body Vajra, the 3 jewels, white Avalokiteshvara. This makes the water mandala and the white bindu gush forcefully. The 3 white, red, and blue bindus merge into one, which then quivers in the heart of the blue Avalokiteshvara. Focus on that one pointedly and pray. I supplicate noble Avalokiteshvara, glorious Karmapa Mikyo Dorje, until you are about to faint. When you are on the verge of fainting, think that the bindu descends unobstructed through your fontanelle, and at the same time hold your breath forcefully. When the bindu reaches your heart, meditate that at once it vividly becomes Avalokiteshvara with 1 face and 4 arms. And visualize that the 3 Avalokiteshvaras above your crown melt into Amrita, which flows down through your fontanelle, entering the mouth of the Avalokiteshvara in your heart, and making him experience the wisdom of great bliss. Supplicate fervently.
Gabdilia, the Jujesibu Lugi, Tushimbugi, Tanyam Lendi, Jorah, Jamdu Semge than Jewa. And Wishi. Girim Zorim than Jewa. Then Je Molam than Jewa, Sumuare. Chesa Dinan Tata, Tangi Kondo, Jamdu Simge, Niganata, Jamdu di Ma, Tina, you have the Maji Shusimre.
Now these instructions on the practice of the Great Compassionate One in Sambhupa's traditions begin with the preparations that are connected with refuge and bodhicitta, the actual practice which is connected with the creation and completion phases, and the conclusion which is dedications and aspirations. So what I have been describing up to now has been between the 2 of refuge and bodhicitta. I have described the refuge.
Tadelea Tambu Jamdu Sadi and Jigdin Tamevada, Lam Lobale, Kevardu, Chavichidu, that Jamdu Chago Sumi.
When you say going for refuge, the first is that we go for refuge in order to make a distinction between it and the ordinary wrong worldly paths.
Tea lama nyengi siangane, da lama nyen shua churwa, da lama nyen shua chi chudu chi yore, da di karasung rasana, jir dene lama da kunjo la karasura da, lo kewa imina, lo lingi kewa siduzan, lo bed, lo de yasha jatamba, lo de kewa imina, tsikdu jamdu majue na ya, da tuendo jamdu chagayo. Kisi lo ma kewa imina, da tsikdu jamdu jewe ina, de tsikambure ma dobe, tuendo jamdu chagayo manas. Tuendo chik rani gyobe ata, gyobsun zhone, gyobe di rani ngune gata chika shuwe, chik da ngen sonda kowe du ngen le gyob tuya chi chagayo manas. Dindis sungi mre.
There's a great master, a Druptopa, or a Mahasiddha named Nyen. This master Nyen said that when we go for refuge to the jewels and to the lamas, to the gurus, And we need to really devote ourselves to it. We need to devote our minds 100%, to dedicate our minds 100% to the gurus. If we do this, if we devote ourselves 100% to going for refuge, then even if we do not recite the words, in actuality we will be going for refuge. But if we do not devote ourselves, if we do not focus our minds on this and recite the words, then the words we recite are merely dry words, but they are not refuge in actuality. They are not actually able to be to move us down to the sources of refuge that can actually give us protection, and they will not be able to guard us from the sufferings of the lower realms.
Dungi namge tedos. And Bema Kamatamashi Jevache, and Tidindo Dawe den Sumzi Jevache. Dawa Sumzi den Jevache. And Tidindo, that tell it Dawa Sumzi den, you have in the Tambo Tindo, that niggy den Tindo and Genesis Kava Church. Dio Olea Genesis Marbuche. Dio Olea Genesis Ombuche. That the ne Genesis Sumu Sane, Genesis Woma, the Ombudwa, Ombudi Tugalea, Lungi Gingorche. Parve Tugana making Uriche. Dingme Tugal tree Gingoyas. That the dig Gingor Sum. Titinglia and Tilly Kamarosum. Tilly Kamarosum di Omadi Arza Timadi Genesis Kavati Tugalia and Tugegi Kasuda Chui Gingor Titinglia Tilly Kavach. Then a Parme Tugegi Lumay Gingor di Galia Tilly Marvaships. Then a Ome Tuge looking or Tigana Tilly Ombuche, that is Tilly Subutigi and Kujosungi, that one Kujosungi Bala. And it's number Tilikavsumi, which is going to metro.
And so here it's important for us to really go for refuge from the heart. So what you do is you visualize in front of you, in the space in front of you, the distance of 1 cubit above the crown of your head. So in the space about a cubit above the level of your head, you imagine that there are 4 petaled white lotuses with moon discs on them, and they are in a column of 3 of these. And in the top seat there is a white Avalokiteshvara. In the middle seat there is a red Avalokiteshvara. And on the bottom, there is a blue Avalokiteshvara. Now, of these 3 Avalokiteshvaras, the bottom one, that is the blue one, has in his heart a mandala of wind. The middle one has in his heart a red mandala of fire. And the upper one has, the white Avalokiteshvara has in his heart a mandala of water. Now, above each of these 3 mandalas, there are white, red, and blue bindus or drops. These, in the heart of the white Avalokiteshvara is a white bindu. In the heart of the red Avalokiteshvara is a red bindu. In the heart of the blue Avalokiteshvara is a blue bindu. These are above the mandalas. Now, so these 3 bindus are, in essence, the 3 jewels, but they take the form of the bindus.
Kasweda Judea Delia and Dajik Swendip 예 오늘은 다지 수수 이체의 수행의 숙장고 제압을야 된전에 에너지 단 디나는 숨바는 지나는 숨바는 시바 게라 두고 봐도 수행의 지 숨바는 신 따되기에 로데 링게기 도한다 수행의 체제 안데 주름 주고 명하자 드리지레샤.
Now, there is a lot to be said about this, although I haven't much time. In any case, it was also clear in the instructions. The main point is that we are supplicating the three jewels. We're supplicating the essences of the three jewels. We need to devote ourselves in complete belief. And when we supplicate with this complete belief, until, as it is said here, until you are about to faint, so you have to supplicate with incredible faith and with wholehearted devotion.
다전에 디제 섬게 주고요. 니베 섬게 바네. 공달 지주도 제네시 숨부 세다베 토그런다웨 긴고를 검시. 긴고 공매 위수 제 뒤숨 개마. 파르메 위수 제가마 버시. 오메 위수 제미규도 제나 숨 살답지. 제 뒤숨 캠베 셰네 심제 탐지기 된도 많이 뱀이 송하다 뒤에 다게 자완데도 보시 머중게 봐도 용진다 탐주데도 민제와 체지 대답이 공방시 토브르 미제리 냠베 탐자도 뒤에 많이 뱀이 장내 되버 제 대네 까마바 니버도 수발라 대신도 자신 투지심보다 까마바 대숨기 체네 죄지 소와 차못답에 랑기 탐에기 링아 있음 다네 시제레스다 난까마바 미유도지를 교바 고모.
Next is bodhicitta. Second is rousing bodhicitta. Visualize the three Avalokiteshvaras above your crown as before, and meditate that there is a moon disk in each of their hearts. Visualize Lord Tusum Khenpa in the center of the uppermost moon disk, Lord Karmapakchi in the center of the middle one, and Lord Mikyo Dorje in the center of the lowest. Lord Dusum Khenpa recites Mani Peme for the sake of all beings, and as he does so, make the resolve, until I too become a victor like him, may I never be parted from this master and this true Dharma. There is no way not to achieve such a level. Along with this, recite Mani Peme innumerable times. Then do the same for the second and third karmapas, and invoke the great compassionate one and the three karmapas by their names, supplicating them fervently. Meditate that this purifies your ordinary body, speech, and mind, so that you become Avalokiteshvara externally and Karmapa Mikyo Dorje internally.
다 심게스 주사네 람멤바당 녀랑레 개버도 차회 제도 다 심게 작업을 수미므래.
Now, for bodhicitta, bodhicitta is taught so that we can distinguish ourselves from the lower paths, the paths of the Shravakas.
딱금 디기 이제 티인디나는 중대베게 중배 셈게다 가자 깜주다 셈게디 야오미기도지 쿠란기 제체 티 신다는 주유가 티 신다는 데스면자래 다디 쿠란 미기도 쿠란기 다지 계주수를 제세 안 미기도 쿠란 제샤와 제샤.
Now, the refuge and bodhicitta that are included in this particular instructions was written by the 8th Karmapa Mikyo Dorje. And so for this reason, it is a little bit different than the instructions on refuge and bodhicitta found in other traditions.
안 라바도 갑들이야지 투지션보다 이제 까마베 체는 주에 소아다가 이 수임bre 다 니걸이야 지당기 땅안 더다 직변아 간견 장야를 줘봐다 까마베 캔 제제 지 까마베 생아 세네 다도 딱한다 딱 까마베 생아 지 간견도 정겨와래 이 간견 장야디 거두 총이면 사는데 저와 진행의 원리도 다디 거두 종이 사드 세브치 셰르야데 칼라카브르셰샤 가르사는 다디 지당기 지 가서다 지 망조 나로래야지 까마베 캔 까마베 시세아데 그로 망조는 규지 다지 년가르들 체베 겁리야 안지 수수기 잡내야 다지 레스토랑에서 가리는 디 캔 디식사지 라바지 루스지 별이게 되임bre 개방하면에 남배체 마사를 거네 다지 별이야 말이지 플라님 모두를 막 위에 주사는 디주기 디주 캔 디주 식사로 되지 루스지 오만에 요래 제가 디규제 때 망트는 갈리갈리 미망 처리야 갈리갈리 총대비 진짜 안 가두 총 가두 마중 세대를 갈라하고 주지로 봐 이나양 까마버 티신시바 자나리아 페베급 소머베 티즈위급리아 바지 까마버 켄 사데 메브자 담메 디메 규제암 주제 가르사나 자나리아디 민게럽급리아 쇠샤베기 상계의 전주선바 기다 천다 즉 초지도 드셔 되지 하래 디나로래야 디신시베기 가서다 구수 그르무지 예체 에너지 공기 체여 예체 다디기 응아디 까마 생아디 오만의 배우고 스티도 마도 까마버치는 사람 집이도 다가나시 급 뒤주산에 응아버 디시시고 자나를 페베 걸리야 안다 공기 생아디 오만의 배우 인상 대장년디 마무시다 충분했어 오만의 배우 사람들 미망부지기 장야지들이 중이보다 대 중인자 안에 가시 급 뒤주산에 양 가시 베나 Confucian semre 다디 콩지기다 자게라 루자서로다 콩지기 전장 대주양지 초지 지단 남발의 시다 마가체 디시 마가요지 디나 상알 마가르시오 인자 고주디 가버를 겹체 오만에 배면 사데 상기 수마를 사야 근데 가버잡 이제 루주난 쾌를 이제 예브래 제가 바지 급디두산에 머니 까마비 생아디 세난드라도 제레스기 생아스난드라도 간다 지규르기도 하네 엄마네 배면 자 장하지마도 간게 장을 수바지 맵자 다디 드린 쇼트지 마 쉬기
Now, in particular here, it says to recite the name mantras of the Great Compassionate One and the Karmapas. And so here at this point, there's the Karmapa Keno, which is like the name mantra of the Karmapas. And I'm often asked, where did this originate? Who started reciting this? It's actually difficult to answer this question. In general, in the public, among the in Tibetan society, it's very common to say Karmapa Keno, Karmapa Nomi, Karmapa Simi. And any time, it was very common in Tibetan society to say, please know me, please see me, to whomever it was that you took as your refuge or whom you placed your hope in. And this is a tradition that predates Buddhism, predates the arrival of Buddhism in Tibet. They would supplicate whatever god it was and say, know me or see me. And so because this is a tradition, sort of a public custom or a societal custom, it's difficult to say exactly when it began. However, when the fifth Karmapa, Deshin Shekpa, went to China, it seems that there was not a tradition of reciting Karmapa Keno. And the reason for this is that during this time there was a compilation of all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and their names and mantras that was made at that time. Within this compilation, there is a drawing of the fifth Karmapa Deshin Shekpa. His name is written, and for his mantra, it gives the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. It does not say Karmapa Keno. And so at the time that the fifth Karmapa Daishin Shekpa went to China, it seems that that many people, there actually started a tradition of many people reciting Om Mani Padme Hum as his name mantra from that time. And there were many Confucian followers at that time, followers of Confucianism, who did not particularly like Buddhism, and in particularly tried to refute or block the secret mantra. And they often raised the complaint that Om Mani Padme Hum is not something that the Buddha himself said. At any case, at this point, they recited the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra as a single mantra that unified the Karmapa and Avalokiteshvara, and they did not recite the Karmapa Keno. So I have just explained this as a bit of a digression.
다 간다디 cam도 생계디 다다 공도 주변은 신기 영험이 기도지 고랑기 다지 제샤버체 안지 대지양 현다는 문자 아주 양지 능균 초신세도 주산에 지 초신기 남바 꿔봐 대다 만자지 고랑 믹세지 예도 비지도 와 제가 이거를 다 제일 뒤주로 충분히는 제일 쉬고 말로 다 대망부시다 쉬먹어체.
Now, as I mentioned before, this particular Going for Refuge and Bodhicitta was written by the Gyawan Mikyo Dorje, and it is different than other ones. Normally, we visualize the field of refuge and so forth, and so here there is a different form, a different arrangement, and if there is time later, then I will discuss it.
다는 의실은 조금 돼야 추이자지 최세 진조도 참 디과 샤발로서 조르차 데니 베메 증부 연락에다 비 추이 강화 면도 나서기 캐버메라 디위서 베메 동불라 예강아르 제비 위기 동부 벤더 다와的제비 딩도 치 좀된데 바바 제레스 원조로 난갸외 안보 빨까마 미유도지 총 군도 까르보 겐데 차루 꾸지 표준소바 따위 처음이 제버 삼 초시 뱀마신 다와의 제베 카르 샤르로 눕 장게를 받아 멜롱모 서버 마르보 정군남 참바다 니지다 가와다 땅인 경우로 내발라 투지심부 구 동번이 이런 신태 숭인기 수도 멜롱소스랑도다 차월곰.
Now, if you wish to begin the main practice, bathe and arrange as many offerings as you have, primarily confess misdeeds and so forth. Then imagine a lotus pond filled with water having the 8 qualities and covered with colorful flowers. In its center is a lotus stalk with 5 spreading branches. Think that on the lotus petals of the central branch atop a moon is one who is the Bhagavan, noble Avalokiteshvara externally, and the glorious Gyawan Karmapa Mikyo Dorje internally. He is white in color with resplendent ornaments, costume, and emblems. One could never get enough of seeing him. In the 4 directions are 4 lotuses with moons on which in the east, south, west, and north respectively there are blue, yellow, red, and green mirrors that are in essence loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Meditate that the body of the great compassionate one, emptiness in nature, appears as a reflection in each mirror in its own color.
니미 이시 경우에 시가르보는 담아시부로 옴아 홍시 당 수주 타고라 알리걸리는 거네 세메 시큐베 똥니게 텐두 뚜레웨 꾸네랑네 나한테는 진윤 대지 이기 나한테달로 ö트베 파고치 심생기 된 빠도메바 제 순두르니를 텐비 예소머르가 타버곰 대달 곰베 공경기 시바데 파바제레스이다 야외왕부로 큐르지 손이 텔레 시바시엔 관계게 죄레 미제바 벌룽 차년 체리 마주버샤 타르게즈 상주동어 안디 바지 미규도 제신 이사레 파데데나 미규도 집에 제신 말 가라서나 제장 커돌이야 잠로다 심게 라속 와서 속제 콩이야 바지 디 수면으로 선투스 정도
Then in the principal's heart is a four-petaled white lotus, in the center of which is a white letter Kshi, the essence of non-dual wisdom. Om, Ah, Hum, and Shri are pasted on the four petals and the Ali and Kali around the center. Motivated by a firm recollection of and longing for emptiness, embraced by the four immeasurables, recite these mantras as many times as you can. Mentally meditate that light radiates from these mantras, making offerings to the nobles and bringing incalculable benefit to all sentient beings. The light gathers back and dissolves into you, entirely purifying all faults. The mind that meditates like this entirely becomes Navalokiteshvara and the Gyawan Karmapa. Without any other cognition altering or contaminating that, push the winds down forcefully and rest without altering anything. In the end, dedicate the virtue to enlightenment. Now, this passage as well was probably written by Mikyo Dorje. So it's probably written by Mikyo Dorje. The reason for saying this is that in the colophon at the end, it says that the refuge, bodhicitta, and so forth were written by Mikyo Dorje. And so this passage is probably included in that so forth.
다디 미버디 미그림디 민라시 이 냠네 체투나 이 세븐 페브루에 되버지 원 미버체다 민라로 쉐브자 다디 제레야 걸리티주 총비나 아니 슈쇼브르 바지 용서를 삼정도.
Now this is a really a different sort of or particular sort of visualization, and I think if we actually practice it, it'll be very beneficial for our minds. And so if I have time later, I would like to give a more detailed explanation of it.
다디네 신다디디 무시 계속이 냠렌디 계속이 냠렌디 아니 선이 슈쇼슈아이.
And now the next section, the main practice of creation and completion, I will speak about tomorrow.
다다리 그 유구제 다 디니슈바 디 나발랭게 사메 켄세레 다리디 다 지기 셰라핀준 진두르체제 전주체제 아는 우마 아주 로숨기리야 데 유다 로숨이야 전주체받는 신기 안 달로 이내야다 전주체제 배야 된지지 쇠요래 다 주제되니 샘점비 춤다당 되네 세메 지든 자셔봐 이 샤마르 탐지케바 샤마르 주변에서 다디 토네 로딘 다 디토노 드라지 두시므레.
Now, in this 20th Kajugun Shi, as you all know, we are going to having competitions. For 3 years, we had competitions about the collected topics, types of evidence, and types of mind. And this year, we are again having a competition, and the topics are the mind-only philosophical school and the general discussion of validity, the smile of Jamyang, which was composed by the 6th Shama Rinpoche.
다데 남규 다주 저바 체베 거라 야기 안주 체메 숑디즈 나로래 다 중문의 신기 그 치고다 나고다 아니 gempham 현재 방법스 수문의 신 다들이 들이야 gempham 현재 방법디 방법가요래 다대야 우마 다지다 추유 시디 우마네 예버래 안들이 드리네야 다디 사게 전에 아주 사제 콜리지 사제 톨롬네 아니 땅에 개는 무슨 고난수 세는데하고 들어가면서 정문다 사게 톨브는 아주 캠프지 된지 쉬어래 다들의 님의 전에 아주 님의다 댄스 전부 주스 댄스 전부 주기 이야기 조신 거밖에 캠프치도 되는 쉬어래 다 길로 전에 다 댄스 전부 숨다 지붕 고만 찾아기 아니 계시 라람바 아니 다 지진 쉬어래 다 디토라들이 미세 다 거기 전에 아주 매종 주기 경험네 당 아주 죽숑기 아주 다 숑제가团당 아주 캠프치 또 되는 쉬어다 디 미세를 지금 아주 다리 가져다 되는 쉬래 다드네 디토리아 아주 겨와 전남배기 다 캠프치도 되는 쉬어래 다들 강점이 계세래 다 아주 지게 다지 그 유바의 전남반이 다지 가서래 기도 집어넣지 다 간다 다도 지 자리에 인도산에 근데 돈에는 아주 다리 전남배기 다 캠프치도 되는 쉬어래 제가 견돔 다 방봉아 또 세든지 쉬네 고난주다 겐방기 타주 난게는부터 고난주라
Now, for the debates, as is clear from the texts on validity from the Indian tradition, you should have the presenters, responders, and also judges to determine who has won or lost the debate. And so, in accord with this, we have this year for 5 judges to determine who wins or loses the debate. And so, as in before, we have invited them from all of the different four different Dharma traditions. And so this year, you have to excuse me, I do not remember all of their names, but we have one Kempo from the Sakya College. From the Nyingma tradition, there are 6 main seats of the Nyingma tradition, and so this year we have a Kempo from Dzogchen Monastery. In the Gelug tradition, among the 3 great seats of the Gelug tradition, this year we have a Geshe Hlaram from Drepung Gomang Monastery. And in particular, for the Kagyu tradition this year, we made a connection with the Bhutanese government and have invited a scholar from Bhutan as a special guest this year. And with the Jonang tradition, as you know, the Jonang tradition and Kagyu traditions have both suffered the same ups and downs over the years. So this year we also have a Kempo from the Jonang tradition. In any case, these are the 5 judges, as you all know, who will be determining who wins the competitions.
다 지당기 추규 다지 생기 추규 지메게 방법들을 쉬어야 돼. 오만은 강조려 쉬는 신기 다 아주 추규 편수 지기지려야지 찬조로 지하다. 지기지려베 다가를 그시다. 지통다. 다 가르쳐다지 dindeji ke langwa sananjando dan jeva sananjando dindeji yawo chona samar dindeji kunni langde da dindeji shiver mi yudu se.
Now, as I have explained to you all before, the reason for having the judges from all the different traditions is that this is in order to promote the connections, promote the respect and the honor that we give between the different traditions. And so, in order to develop our relations with other traditions, and so that our relations with the other traditions go well, we are inviting them. And so, this is the primary aim of doing so.
정원에서는 당공공다 고주비산 방법나무 정오주 쉬고야를 세대 다 당공 아 바진 수진 대화를 제제 근데 야고 중마서 제산들이 다지 모든 durduzam지도 쉬비.
Now, actually, the debate started yesterday evening, and I really should have given the introductions last night, but I had to rush about and do many things. I got very busy and was unable to. And so this morning, I've now given you a brief introduction.
다만시 주주이 버지다 주주중이 참여하는데 다 드린디 디스 주스다. 다나서변 고주야의 시차소 안 등기지 세제 벌슨 샤데 추수다 내가 추수체가 딜레이래샤 추수체가 디젤레샤 제산디 추수 제가 추임 고네 추산다 추규지시다 데스바 다 가만히 쉬우즈다 그지 가르다 기시하고 제바 가만히 쉬우 그래 맞지 가만히 쉬우시도 가만 숨주스 해로
So we began a little bit late this morning. I had a little problem with my watch, and it began a little bit late, and then the tea break started a bit late, and basically everything's been delayed. Everything's been mixed up this morning, and so since we've mixed up from the beginning, we might as well continue being mixed up. And I'll keep speaking for 20 minutes, but 20 minutes always turns into 30.
저는 다 라바도 다루대야 이 세메 지준 장하시아바디 나 세메 지준 장하시아바디 얘다 샤마르 주변제 샤바디 엄마 세메 지준 디디시아바디 아주 수지를 샤요 말에 수지기 하고가 말에 로질 너니 말에 신일로입니다. 신일로리아 아주 나 아메리카리아다 나왔음지 치브레 데 만로 공리아 데두산에 아주 데디 까마차미기 딱 까마차미기 남다르래야 치 남다 남다르사 망부쇼래 제자다 치 남다르지 임베 치 남다르 치제 마죠 디나마 로윤두산에 안 세메 지든 자샤바사지 아고 룬지 체비 인스타 너네 세메 지든 자샤베 기죠 마나 세메 지든 룬지 체비 인스 송샤 제자다 세메 지든지 예사레 삼브르지 나 아주 계절도 충분해네 다 세메 지든지 민고랑 타나 지 세메 지든지 민 가르스 유 아주 하고 마나 다들은 아메리카 침브레 아메리카 레디스산에 세메 지든 자샤베디 제가 안다는 신기 듀에지드 샤마르주베제 듀에지드인데 라라 셈버도 충분해 다이네들이 세메지드인디나나 류탕부 소마르다 다양 류탕부사디 염데지야 레다 치루류스는 저도다 류탕부 말하면 그래서 치루류 지드인디 토요만에 시마도다 류신다 숨기 지드인디 토래 그래서 다디나네 류 수배지든 류 수배지든은 쇼지 상에서매 제만 다 장모 토브레 다디 지단 지든 야고 쉬우도 라바르도 아니 지준 가즈기 다지 땅 아주는 유 지준 가즈디 지금 오늘은 도도를 차지래 고와 도도를 내야 지금 안 다는 신기 지 진삼르디 탐진지들 안다 지금 진삼로디 세워시라야 되지 또 차디도 제가 디 준세는 알아내는 시라 가보숑 근데 인주산 다리 딘데지 안수에 라랴 지 가르르다 지 이세디 아주 라발레제 에네 롬녀차 충분히 은 개버 삼시라레 삼정도 인주산에 디 준세는 안 상에 마음바디 토알이야 에너지 롬녀로지 보다보다 제제 너는 지 리준 가즈기 공부 공대 지 대라도 또 투야기 다 저하다 이제로 또 수에
Now, the general discussion of Lidity, the Smile of Jamyang, written by the 6th Shama Rinpoche, is a text that we previously had known nothing about. We didn't know anything about it. And I think it was last year or the year before. Anyway, it was 1 year, probably the year before, when I went to America. Before I left, I was reading a biography of Karma Chakme. Now, there are many biographies of Karma Chakme, his inner, outer, and so forth. And I was reading an outer biography of him. And in it, it mentioned, he said that he received the transmission of the general discussion of Lidity. It didn't even
memorize.
Excuse me, that he had memorized it said that he had memorized the general discussion of Lidity. And so from that point, we thought, oh, there probably is one of these texts, but we didn't know the title or anything about it. Now, when I went to America later that year, then I was able to get copies of the general discussions of both the Vinaya as well as validity. Now, with the general discussion of validity, we don't have the general discussion of the chapter on establishing validity. But we do have the discussions of the other 3 chapters. Actually, the last chapter, the 3rd chapter, we're missing perhaps a few portions of it, but a few passages from it. But other than that, we have the whole text. And this is an excellent text for us to study, especially as it really takes the main points of the ocean of literature and logic and presents them in easy ways that we can really get the main point of the text. And it gives us a real idea of the different positions that we need to hold. So I'm very happy that we have this text, and that now again we are able to study and read it and study it. I think is extremely fortunate. And I think that in the future, if we study this, then it will make it easy. I hope that it will make it easy for us to realize the intent of the ocean of literature of logic.
That same chidun duwe chidun di da ma ngombe chidun uma ne tobre da same chidun duwe chidun di jer toba insa da perjin chidun a su chidun chi yobresha da de ji togu menroso rewar kach tik tik ni to chidun da de ji toba menroso ine kawa ye hago mare ne ji toba menroso 버지 tenso 다는 ji ume chidun ji yobra 대조직 도바르를 맨로 삼태서 다디 친주를 자체인 아니 라버도 샤마를 미치기다 주모메미 수마디 신경을 또만도 디스 퇴바 땅이 또마테즈 지 망스 땅제 다디 베즈도 과연은 쿠쇼스 또마르 땅가체 다다는 구주수 유스 게임도 다 갈리 찍래 용면로
Now we've had the general discussions of validity already, and so now we have received the general discussions of validity in Vinaya, and so we hope that in the future we can also get the general discussion of Prajnaparamita, the Mikyo Dorje's rest for the yogis. So we hope that we can get it. We haven't found it yet. We don't know where it is, and we aren't sure where to get it. But I hope that we will be able to get it eventually. And there also should be a general discussion of Madhyamaka. So these are texts that we need to search for, but it's a little difficult to look for them sometimes, and it seems like the protector, the Shama Rinpoche's protector, is holding on to them a little bit tightly. So I need to give him some extra tormas, and hopefully when he gets the extra tormas, eventually we will be able to get them.
nani chirana dan dode bade nani chinsimre ta dine dalo sim dalo one chevin dangba chevin semzam da umare semzam da ume chumde kwalya cheba chare ta ine ta ngosu bige ngasu dalo chubda churi soba bige 가사다 또 다른 살아용 안드는 아주 가난이야 지 semsambe 야 개바든 된대슈 아주 냠도 둘린체 바진 나와지도 둘린체 들리체는 자더니 다들 semsam보다 우마베사는 아주 레라우를 치제 semsam도 우마니 냠도 쇠샤인슬라르다 따이네 semsam보다 야셔 슈체 띵사부 슈도스 그래서 당연히 다로 우마디 주기도 봐샤제 얘는 semsam데 야고 추나사지 들이주제 다다로 semsam을 줘야 두스레 다지당 그 semsam에 될이야 아주 주도 추리 소배기 관주의기 다지 예 semsam에 주대다 이제를 추리지 제어래 다디 탭돼야 디스 치타래 띵예견에 가라서 네 간의 루균 다데 지 금생하시죠 다디 초今年的 디간의 루규죠 때 semsam의 루규지 다딩에 tialdi tuzuru disun gore gyumze jik tere ta gyumze shinda de nge yang ji gei to ne chu en samza me yi ji chu ru sue je ji churi ru chwa sometimes ta de be gachen bu shu stam dan che de che nu san charo ma che ne de de disun go so tebde 제가 간다 얘기 추리 시샤부터 사람 손데 이내야 이제 추리 소비액이 다들 추리 시샤부디 언다 바지 니마 가시 지야래 대들 레그면 좀 마시 강주 데 고비도 등만에 당사래 로전 강주 년에 앞에서 다지 제가 단도는 지 셈점에 좀 든디 한 마시 지잖아 뒤주 중무입니다 아는 얘기 다지 셈점에 좀 되고 할래야 다지 뒤주 중무이는 대지 모델로 소리치다 지단 나버즈 마케면 게임도 되네 대지 모델 소리진도 뒤지 마셔야 면로서면 다들 슈고다 먹고 다 떠더 시규래
Now, with the mind-only philosophical school, last year we debated the Great Exposition and Sutra schools, and so this year we originally planned to debate both the mind-only in the middle way, but as we actually got into it, with the committee compiling our philosophical school text came to Dharamsala. There was also a scholar from China who came, who's very learned in the mind-only school, and we had a month of discussions in the mind-only school. So originally it seemed like it'd be easy to do mind-only and middle way both together, but the mind-only itself is really vast and very deep and profound, and so we decided to put off the middle way for another year, and thought it would be good to focus only on the mind-only school. Now the compilation committee has written the philosophical texts for the mind-only schools, but it's currently at the printers. It should come in a few days. But it's been held up a little bit. One reason for that is that the beginning of this, there is a history that I have written. That history took a little bit longer to write, and so that has held it up. And another reason is that I had hoped to gather many different materials from Chinese sources and collect them. And this is a difficult project. It's a project that took a very long time to finish. And so it took a long time to finish. So that is not quite ready. But the compilation that was put together by the committee should be coming within a few days. And so with the mind-only philosophical school, if there is time, I would like to give you an introduction to this later. Of course, there's nothing there that you don't already know, but I think that it would be nice to speak about it, and so we will see how it goes.